At 3:25 in the morning on March 13, 2026, the residents of Adana, Turkey were asleep. Then the sirens started. Not traffic, not police, air raid sirens. People grabbed their phones, ran to windows, posted what they saw. A glowing object, fast, on fire, crossing the night sky above a city of 2.2 million people in southern Turkey. Security forces flooded the streets. Red alert was declared at the military base 10 kilometers from the city center. And within hours, Turkey's defense ministry confirmed what the footage already suggested. NATO air defenses had intercepted an Iranian ballistic missile over Turkish airspace. Now here is what every broadcast that covered this story this morning left out. That base that went to red alert at 3:25 a.m. is Incirlik Air Base. It hosts American troops, Spanish troops, Polish troops, and according to multiple credible assessments that no U.S. or Turkish official has ever officially denied, approximately 50 American B61 nuclear gravity bombs stored in underground vaults. Iran fired a ballistic missile toward a NATO base storing American nuclear weapons. And it was not the first time. It was the third time in 9 days. March 4th, March 9th. This morning, 3 Iranian ballistic missiles into NATO airspace in 9 days. All 3 intercepted. The 4th has not been fired yet. Stay with us, because by the end of this video you will understand exactly why Iran keeps firing at Turkey, what one confirmed hit on that base legally obligates 32 NATO nations to do, and why the answer to that last question is the most dangerous sentence in this entire war. Iran is not testing Israel's defenses. It is testing NATO's response threshold. And so far the answer it has received is 3 interceptions and 3 statements. The 4th missile has not been fired yet. Subscribe right now and hit the bell, because this story broke at 3:25 this morning and the full strategic picture has not been assembled anywhere else. What we are about to show you is confirmed by Turkey's defense ministry, NATO's own spokesperson, Al Jazeera, France 24, AFP, and Anadolu Agency. 3 missiles, 9 days, a pattern, and a pattern means something is being tested. Let's start with what Incirlik actually is, because the coverage keeps calling it a NATO facility. That description is accurate and completely insufficient. Incirlik Air Base sits 10 kilometers from the center of Adana in southern Turkey. It has housed American military operations for 7 decades. Today it hosts U.S. forces, Spanish military personnel, Polish military personnel, and Turkish Air Force units. And it stores approximately 50 American B61 nuclear gravity bombs in underground WS-3 vaults under a NATO nuclear sharing arrangement that has existed since the Cold War. These are nuclear weapons, on NATO soil, 10 kilometers from a Turkish city of 2.2 million people. The sirens that woke those residents at 3:25 this morning were not a local emergency. They were the sound of an Iranian ballistic missile entering the airspace above one of the most sensitive military installations on Earth, for the 3rd time in 9 days, and NATO intercepted it. Again, drop a comment right now. Iran has fired 3 ballistic missiles toward a NATO base storing American nuclear weapons in 9 days. All 3 intercepted. Tell us what you think happens to this war if the 4th one is not. Now understand the pattern, because 3 is not coincidence. March 4th, Iran fires the first ballistic missile into Turkish airspace. NATO intercepts it. Debris lands in Gaziantep province. NATO confirms the interception in under 10 minutes. March 5th, NATO announces it has strengthened its alliance-wide ballistic missile defense posture and deploys an additional U.S. Patriot system to Malaya province. March 9th, Iran fires a second missile into Turkish airspace. NATO intercepts it again. Turkey's defense ministry officially warns Tehran against provocative steps. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian calls Erdogan and denies Iran fired it. Let that sit. Iran's own president called the leader of the country his missiles were entering and denied his missiles were doing what NATO had just confirmed they were doing. March 13th, 3:25 a.m. Sirens at Incirlik. 3rd missile. 3rd interception. 3 missiles. 3 interceptions. 3 statements. And Iran keeps firing. That is not a military failure. That is a probe. Iran is finding out how many times it can send a ballistic missile into NATO airspace before NATO does something other than intercept it and issue a statement. The answer so far is 3, and counting. If this is giving you context that no broadcast assembled when they covered the siren footage this morning, share this video right now. Because the difference between a missile that is intercepted and a missile that lands is the difference between a regional war and the largest military conflict since 1945. Now understand why Iran is targeting Turkey at all. Because Turkey is not Israel. Turkey is not the United States. Turkey and Iran share a border. They have significant trade. Erdogan has positioned himself as a potential mediator. So why is Tehran firing ballistic missiles into Turkish airspace 3 times in 9 days? One word: Kürecik, the radar base in Malaya province that Turkey hosts on behalf of NATO. Kürecik contains N/TPY, 2 radar, the same type Iran destroyed at Muwaffaq Salti Air Base in Jordan in the opening days of this war. But Kürecik is not just a missile defense sensor. It is the system that detects Iranian missile launches in the first seconds after they leave Iranian territory. It feeds trajectory data to NATO air defense systems across the entire region. It gave NATO less than 10 minutes to intercept the first Iranian missile on March 4th. Iran knows exactly what Kürecik does. Kürecik is the eye that sees Iran's missiles before they reach Israel, before they reach U.S. bases in the Gulf, before they reach NATO territory. Destroy Kürecik and Iran's ballistic missiles becomes significantly harder to stop across the entire eastern Mediterranean. Iran is not firing at Turkey because it wants to fight Turkey. It is firing at Turkey because Turkey is hosting the radar that is helping to stop Iran's missiles from reaching their targets. And this morning NATO confirmed it has deployed additional Patriot coverage specifically to protect Kürecik. NATO is now defending a Turkish radar base from Iranian ballistic missile attack. The radius of this war just expanded to include a country of 85 million people that shares a land border with Iran. Subscribe and turn on notifications right now. Because the Kürecik detail is the piece this morning's coverage missed entirely. If Iran hits Kürecik and takes out NATO's primary early warning radar for the eastern Mediterranean, the next 10 minutes after that is the scenario every alliance planner is gaming out right now. Now here is Article 5. The sentence that turns a regional war into something that has no historical parallel since 1945. Article 5 of the NATO treaty states that an armed attack against one member is considered an attack against all. It does not say the attack must succeed. It does not say there must be casualties. It says an armed attack. Iran has fired 3 confirmed ballistic missiles into the airspace of Turkey, a NATO member. Turkey officially designated them as ballistic munitions launched from Iran entering Turkish airspace. NATO officially confirmed intercepting them. The legal threshold for Article 5 consultation is arguably already met, and yet NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has not invoked it. Turkey has not requested formal consultation. Washington has not triggered the alliance process. What they are doing instead is intercepting the missiles, issuing statements, and closing consulates. Washington shut its consulate in Adana this week and told all American citizens to leave southeastern Turkey. Read that again. The United States closed a consulate in a NATO ally city and told Americans to leave. Not because the threat was resolved, because the next missile might not be intercepted. If that missile lands on Incirlik and kills American and NATO service members on Turkish soil, the pressure to invoke Article 5 becomes the kind of pressure no government in Brussels or Washington can absorb without response. 32 nations, the largest military alliance in human history, all of it legally triggered. The consequence is not an aircraft list. The consequence is that Iran wakes up the next morning at war with every major military power in Europe simultaneously. That is what Article 5 means. And that is what 3 intercepted missiles are 3 steps closer to activating. And then there is Dubai. Because on the same morning the sirens sounded over Adana, Iranian drones struck Dubai's International Financial Center. The Jerusalem Post confirmed it. UAE air defenses intercepted the drones, but shrapnel damaged a prominent building in one of the world's most important financial hubs. Home to the regional headquarters of HSBC, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and over 5,000 registered companies. Iran struck it this morning. On the same morning, it fired a 3rd ballistic missile into NATO airspace. 2 simultaneous escalations on the same morning, one against a NATO member, one against the financial infrastructure of the Gulf's most globally connected city. That is not coincidence. That is a message about how many fronts Iran is willing to open simultaneously. Here is the complete picture as of March 13, 2026. 3 confirmed Iranian ballistic missiles into Turkish airspace in 9 days. All 3 intercepted. All 3 aimed at the region containing a NATO base with American nuclear weapons. NATO deployed additional Patriot coverage to protect the radar Iran is trying to destroy. Washington closed its consulate in Adana. Iran's president denied firing missiles that NATO confirmed it intercepted. Iran struck Dubai's financial center on the same morning as the 3rd Turkish interception, and the 4th missile has not been fired yet. Iran is not testing Israel's defenses. It is testing NATO's response threshold. 3 times the answer has been an interception and a statement. The question is what happens when that answer changes. Because if the 4th missile lands on Incirlik, the treaty is already written. The obligation is already signed by 32 nations. And the war that started as a U.S.-Israeli operation against Iran on February 28 becomes something that no government in February 2026 planned for. The sirens in Adana sounded at 3:25 this morning, for the 3rd time in 9 days. They did not wait for permission, and neither will the 4th one. If you made it to the end of this video, you now understand why 3 intercepted missiles over Turkey is the most important escalation in this war that no mainstream broadcast assembled into a single sentence this morning. Subscribe. Share this with someone who saw the Adana footage and did not understand why a NATO base in Turkey changes every calculation about where this war goes next. And drop a comment below. Because NATO has intercepted 3. The treaty says 1 confirmed attack on a member is enough. And the only thing standing between this regional war and 32 nations is an interceptor that has worked 3 times in a row. 3 times. The 4th missile has not been fired yet.